Raptors are the top of the food chain, and they're truly amazing hunters. When I first started leading walks, I talked about the ospreys, the owls, and the eagles separately, with quite a few specifics. And what I found was that most people are interested in an overview with a few tidbits here and there. And how to identify that large bird. Oh, it's big, it's black, what is it? Well, where's the white? You know, it may not be an eagle, it might be a vulture, it might be an osprey. So today I'll be somewhere in between. You have the more specifics on the handout sheet there, the comparisons. And I'll, in the talk, be a little bit more general. Ospreys, great horned owls, and bald eagles have very nicely been nesting out where we can see them on the Osprey Trail. This talk today is about comparisons, similarities and differences of these three species, with a bit about others that you might observe: vultures, hawks, and falcons. The word raptor comes from the Latin rapere, which means to seize and carry away, take away by force. Flying is an energy hog, so birds must be very energy efficient. They seek out habitats that have a reliable food supply, and it's food supply rather than cold that makes birds migrate and dictates where they can live. Each one has its own primary niche. So let's look at several adaptations that raptors have for hunting prey, especially eyes, ears, nose, feet, wings, beak, and digestive systems. Other raptors that we sometimes see along the trail, across the top are the red-shouldered hawk, a Cooper's hawk, turkey vulture, and black vulture, and on the bottom are the falcons, the kestrel, and the peregrine falcon. How are raptors built to hunt? They are all carnivores, meat eaters or fish eaters. Surf and turf and carrion too. Yummy, yummy. They have amazing eyesight for finding their next meal and navigating around obstacles. They have feathered wings. We'll see that each one has wings maximized for hunting. They have strong hooked beaks for ripping flesh. Sharp, strong talons for capturing and holding onto their meal. They all lay about 1 to 4 eggs, 1 to 3 days apart. They start incubating with the first egg so that they will also hatch 1 to 3 days apart, and the oldest will be stronger and get more food, and at least one of them will survive. Raptor eggs take about 5 weeks to hatch, and then about 5 weeks until they're ready to fledge, which also means flying out of the nest. Birds in general, raptors in particular, have exceptional eyesight. I've never seen a bird wearing eyeglasses, have you? Nearsighted birds just can't compete and survive. They all have rapid focusing. They have a nictitating membrane that comes from the center of the eye and goes out to the sides. They also have the upper lid that goes down and the lower lid that goes up, and some of them can do the lids separately. Ospreys, bald eagles, hawks, and falcons have a slightly flattened retina, a little bit farther from the lens than we have, and we have binocular vision with a focal point that goes out to the front. Hawks, osprey, and eagles also have a second focal point out to the side, so they can see birds or other prey and what's happening. It just sharpens and gives a wider, in-sharp focal range. They can also see ultraviolet light. The diurnal raptors, the ones that hunt during the day, have millions more cones than we have. That's the color vision and the sharpening vision. Some of those cones are filled with oils, droplets of oil to further sharpen the eyesight. Their eyes fill their sockets, so they can move them a little bit, but not side to side the way you and I can, which means they have to turn their heads and focus more where their prey is. Nocturnal owls hunt at night, so they don't need all those cones to see color. They have millions more rods that see darkened light and movement. And they can see almost in no light at all. If we're in a dark room and somebody flips the light switch on, it takes several seconds to have our eyes adjust. Owl eyes adjust immediately. And if they're sitting on a branch during the day and one eye is in sunlight and one eye is in shade, they'll adjust separately, which is pretty amazing. Owl eyes are tubular. As you can see in the one in the center here, that eye socket is tubular. So they can't move their eyes at all. They have to move their head sideways or up and down, which helps them to pinpoint where their prey is. Eagles have a ridge over the top, and many of the hawks do too, that is a protector from branches or from kids eating or sunshade maybe. I found that if I give more details than what you see here on the screen, most people kind of start to tune out. These relative sizes help to ID the birds seen. And they really have appreciated having the relative sizes. For people who want more detail, I show them the comparison sheet that you received as a handout. And those people who have asked for more detail usually take a look at that comparison sheet and they pop out their phones and take pictures of it. So ospreys and great horned owls are kind of in the 2 to 5 pound range. Females are about 25 to 30% larger than the males for all of the raptors. Wingspan, I'm 5'7", my wingspan is about 5'7", which is that of an osprey. The great horned owls, similar size, a little bit smaller than osprey, their wingspan is shorter. And the eagles are another foot on either side of my fingers. Eagles in Florida are 6 to 10 pounds. Up north, they're a little bit larger than that. They have more down feathers and more fat on them and muscles so that they can withstand the cold. The thing that distinguishes a bird is that it has feathers. No other animals have them. Wings are their primary mode of transportation, and the shape varies according to their food niche. They have exceptionally powerful wing muscles. You know, when you have your turkey or your chicken, the white meat is the muscles for the wings. They don't have the muscle. We have muscles in our arms. They don't have the muscles in their wings. They have ligaments that go out into the wing that these muscles make happen. And one of them goes over the back to bring the wings up, and in the front brings the wings down. They use these fingers kind of at the end to dissipate turbulence when they're in thermals, and the tails act as a rudder or a brake. Most of these birds molt gradually. They'll lose a couple of tail feathers, one from either side, or a few wing feathers balanced from either side, because their lives depend upon what they can catch as prey. Eagles up here and the vultures have broad, long wings for soaring and thermals. The osprey has long, bent wings for gliding and hovering into the wind and diving. It can hover by putting its tail out kind of as a brake. It's hovering in the wind. It's not hovering like a hummingbird with figure eights that make it hover. but it's hovering and staying stationary in the wind as it looks for its fish and before it dives into the water. The accipiters, which is this one over on the right, are like the Cooper's hawk. They have shorter, more rounded wings. They can move easily through the branches. Think about flying through a space that's about as wide as your shoulders. And the wind is blowing and the branches are moving. They have, they can do that. Their wings are good for short bursts of speed, and the long tail acts like a rudder for the maneuverability through the branches. The beauty over here on the left is the red-shouldered hawk. Broad wings for long soaring on thermals, and it's looking for prey more out in the open. The falcon on the bottom here has long pointed wings, narrow pointed wings, for soaring, for speed, and for maneuverability. Birds take a lot of time caring for their feathers because their lives depend upon them. So let's take a moment to look at the feathers. People seem really concerned when they see the birds out in the cold or the rain or even a bad storm. Feathers are a bird's home. These contour feathers on the left have a stiff rachis or staff in the center. They are wing feathers, and they are the contour feathers that make the outside of the bird in the shape of it aerodynamic. They're like the siding on our houses. The down feathers are only stiff at the bottom, and they provide a lot of insulation. Birds weathering in the cold climates have lots more insulation than the birds that are down here in the winter, or that are pure residents here. The semi-plumes add to the insulation. They're intermediate between the contour and the down feather. And then they have the filar plumes. These are not controlled by the muscles that are in the skin. They are receptive to pressure and vibration. They are the bird's feather app that tells them when their feathers are out of place and whether they need to preen and put them back into place. And the last feathers are the bristles, usually found around the mouth, nose, and eyes, and give protection, possibly helping channel food, but keeping stuff out of eyes. If you find a feather, search for Feather Atlas. There are a couple of them there. The one that you want is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Feather Atlas, and it's very good at helping to identify at least the flight feathers. I picked up a feather on the beach out here one day and wanted to take it home to identify it. It's illegal to take feathers home, but I did bring it back and put it back at Honeymoon. But what I found was, I brought this feather home. It was a little bit tacky, and I don't have asthma and I don't have allergies. And when I sat down at my computer to figure this feather out, I was having trouble breathing. And I realized it was the feather, and I took it in and washed it off with Dawn, and everything was fine after that. So something in the, whether it was picked up from the air or whether it was part of the preening of the bird, affected me. So if you're picking up a feather, be careful of it, especially if you feel that it's not totally fresh. It turned out it was a brown pelican feather. So, they molt, so feathers are around, and they kind of decompose into the ground eventually.
Hey Lynn,
Yes.
Quick questions. Why can't you take a feather home?
In the 1800s and early 1900s, birds were killed for their feathers, and they made feather hats out of them. And today, it still stands because nobody can say, you didn't take that feather to put it in a hat or some kind of decoration. you know, they can't tell whether it was a molted feather or a killed bird feather.
The old rules still in place today.
That's
People
still
wear hats with feathers in them anymore, right?
That's still in place today. I've never seen anybody enforce it, but they could enforce it if there were complaints.
And the second part is, could it be that the bird had eaten some red tide fish?
It's very possible. I don't think it was a red tide season. We've had more red tide here this year than in previous years, and this was a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, it could be something it was eating. It could have been oil from a boat that had passed by that was on the wings. It could have been the preening. I don't know what it was, but I found that I had trouble breathing.
Bothered you,
Yeah. So it's just a being aware. Feathers, all the feathers are controlled by muscles in the skin and can be individually fine-tuned. Mrs. Owl here on the left was at Philippi Park, and this was on a really cold day. This bird stands about 2 feet tall. And in the cold, she had all of her contour feathers tightly together, and all of her down feathers on the inside puffed out, and she looked like a beach ball. You know, this 2 foot tall beach ball with a head on top. It was really kind of comical to see. The kestrel on the right, I was walking down the trail here on a hot day, hot and humid, and there was no breeze at all. And this little guy was up on top of one of the snags, and he had all of his feathers opened out. You know, his windows were open, and I could see a little bit of movement in his feathers. So obviously up where he was, that there was some part of a breeze. And I know it was he because I also saw him from the side, and he has kind of bluish wings. The female has brown wings. We have a female. I've seen a female once or twice here. I've seen the male quite a few times. He's often down there. Talons are curved and sharp, the better to catch and hold on to their prey. These osprey talons give a good idea of their lethalness. The one on the top left is the top of the talon, and you can see the scales on it. The one on the bottom is upside down, and it has little spicules or spikes on it to help hold the slippery fish. And look at those talons. They is actually an eagle talon right here. They are sharp. They're made of keratin, which is like our fingernails or our hair. And they continue growing, and they get worn down as the animal is hunting, as the bird is hunting. You can see the talons of the osprey here holding on to this, what I think is ballyhoo. It's got uneven bill out in front. And then there's a great horned owl on the bottom. I think I have to find a more visible picture of talons. But they all have these talons. Here's bald eagle talons. And I showed the red-shouldered hawk talon because when they're in the nest or when they don't need them for hunting or standing on a branch, they close them up like this so that that the sharp talons are not out where they hurt somebody else. Beaks are adapted for tearing flesh from bones. They have an inner core of a lightweight bone, but the outer surface is also made of keratin. And their beaks do continue to grow and get refreshed and sharpened up for tearing flesh. Most raptors kill their prey with their talons. Falcons have a notch in their beak, which they use to sever the backbone of their prey. And what is prey? We have mammals, we have lizards, insects, birds, snakes, and fish. And this one also qualifies as carrion. You know, anything in the animal world is open for prey. Surf and turf, and carrion too. Surf is the osprey and eagle. Turf owls, eagles, hawks, and falcons. Surf and turf, eagles. Carrion, eagles, and vultures. Notice that the eagles are in there for everything. They are scavengers and opportunists. Ospreys can dive into the water up to 3 feet. 99% of their diet is fish, and they want it alive. Eagles catch their fish close to the surface. Eagles can swim quite well if they catch a big one. About 70% of their diet is fish. Eagles are opportunists and scavengers, and they don't care whether it's dead or alive. Owls catch prey that ventures out in the night, so they have a different set of animals than the diurnal raptors. And they sometimes hunt during the day, especially when they're raising young. If you've ever had teenagers in your kitchen, you'll know you know what I mean. Ours kind of inhaled the kitchen as they went through. Falcons can catch their prey on their wing. And according to a falconer who was one of the instructors at an Audubon camp that I went to, hawks are serious about hunting. And they're going to catch their prey and they're going to eat it and take it home. Falcons, they'll play with it for a while. They'll swoop down and they'll catch a bird and they'll throw it up in the air and they'll go catch it again and have a little fun with it on the way. Birds don't have any teeth, so they have to have other options. They have a crop to store food that they can eat later and carry to their chicks. Owls don't have a crop. Eagles have a crop and they can store a couple pounds of food in there up to for a couple of days. The proventriculus is the first of the stomachs, and it gets digestive enzymes from the liver, which starts to break everything down. Then it goes on to the gizzard, which is like the meat grinder. So when an owl is eating food, or when any of them are eating food, it's first getting all of the acids to start liquefying the animal, and then the gizzard is grinding it up, and it will sort out the fur and the bones and the skull. Owls will eat the whole mouse or small animals, and then they'll send it out as a pellet. The hawks have pellets and eagles have pellets too, but they're usually small and you're not going to find them. Birds eat and digest and excrete their waste. Birds in 45 minutes to a couple of hours. Owls are more like 4 to 6 hours to digest the whole animal, and it must be they must eject that pellet before they can eat again. Humans take 6 to 7 hours to digest, and 24 to 72 hours before it's excreted as waste. Food is further digested in the intestines, and the nutrients are taken out. They have kidneys that take out the uric acid, but they don't excrete it as a liquid. They don't have any bladder at all. Cloaca is the exit point of the birds. Everything that goes in goes through their mouth, and everything that comes out goes out through the cloaca. And this is what landed on my windshield one day. The white part it's solid, but it's uric acid. You know, that's why you don't want to leave bird stuff on your car very long, because it is acidic. And then the little dark spots are the solid waste. This is a pellet from an owl. You can see a couple of skulls in there and little pieces of bone in this part here.
And I have a question.
Yes.
I know the owls regurgitate the pellets.
Yes.
Why do the other raptors do not? Are they able to digest the bones?
They are more likely to rip the meat off of the bones. The ospreys and I'll show in a few minutes, do rip the flesh off. Little fish, they'll eat the whole thing, and the digestive enzymes, the digestive juices will dissolve the little bones and scales from those fish. I was out on a walk one day and had a group of Girl Scouts with me, and as I was talking, they were looking at the tree next to that owl sign, which is where the owls like to sit. And they came up with this pellet there, handed it to me, and it was fresh. And it was gooey. Fortunately, I had a paper towel with me, and we wipe our hands off. But you can see it looks as though there's a long beak there. It might have been a woodpecker, little woodpecker. And people had been telling me there were peregrine falcons here for a couple of years. I finally saw one about halfway down the trail where it opens out, and there's that bench. This guy was behind it. And he didn't have a fully dark front, and when I looked at it on the computer, I could see his crop layer is full. So he probably had just caught a bird and was sitting there and getting ready to digest it. Ospreys fly over the water. They can soar for a couple of 100 feet above the water. Shallow waters around Honeymoon Island provide good fishing grounds. It can dive into the water as much as 3 feet. They have the nictitating membrane, acts like goggles, and they can also close their nose off so the water doesn't go up into their head. They have dense, oily plumage. All birds have a preen gland at the base of their back, just above the tail, and theirs is a very waxy, oily substance that they use to preen and put over their feathers. And when an osprey catches a fish, the ospreys and the great horned owls have an outer toe that is movable. So the osprey is going to turn that fish horizontally so that it's more aerodynamic to carry. He can dive into the water and come flying straight out of the water with that fish. And if you've ever seen a bird come out of the water, whether it's a gull or an osprey or whatever, keep watching, because very shortly it's going to shake like a dog to get all the droplets off. And it's just kind of fun to see it wiggle out there. All of the photos, except for a couple of them in this program, are mine. The one with the fish is from another volunteer, Mary Jo Wisnowski. This one I liked because he's come out of the water and is sitting there drying off in the wind. But notice how slender the wings are, and the tail just comes out to here. The wings are longer than the tail. Good for soaring, good for maneuverability. They often start several nests, and whichever tree happens to have the best stability, they'll keep adding to. The one on the right, he's bringing more sticks in. The male usually brings them in, and the female arranges them. It's her eggs that have to stay in that nest. But they really just kind of bring in these sticks, and they'll poke them around a little bit, but it's not really shaping it the way a robin's nest is. This is an osprey egg. There's another one here, wooden eggs that have been painted like osprey eggs. They're often quite colorful. All the rest of them have a kind of a matte white egg, but the ospreys, as it's coming down the oviduct, and the shell is put on, and then the colors are put on just before the egg is laid. Our daughter has a chicken coop, and I went out to gather eggs one day, and I went out and reached in and got this egg out of the nest, and I was really surprised. It was warm, and it was like a rubber ball. It was very flexible. Well, it has to come out of that little cloaca, so it kind of comes out and then forms. This one hadn't hardened up yet. And it was the first time I really realized that the egg that I get in the grocery store isn't quite the way it starts out. About 5 weeks later, the eggs will hatch. Here's an osprey with 2 chicks in the nest. And you can see just above this one, there's a little bit of red. The adult has brought back something for them to eat. On the left, you see the osprey. When they catch a fish, they're going to go sit on a branch and eat the delicate parts, the head and the eyes. And then they'll bring it headless back to their mate with chicks in the nest. Great horned owls are one of the most common in the U.S. They're a fierce predator, hunt in twilight and during the night. Opportunists, I've already talked about their eyes. They can swivel their head as much as 270 degrees. You know, we can only go so far. And we have 7 vertebrae in our necks. The raptors have 14, and so they can turn their necks a lot farther than we can. These little tufts on top are really just feathers. They make them look fierce. They camouflage them and make them blend into their surroundings better. Or maybe they look sexy. Their ears instead are behind this facial disc, right around the eye. And I mentioned being able to change feathers, adjust feathers separately. So these are stiff feathers, and they can focus them for the sound of whatever they're trying to catch. Their wings are velvety. The leading edge has kind of a toothiness to it and is very soft. And the trailing edge is also soft. So they're totally silent. They'll sit on a branch, wait for their prey, and then with these big wings, just take a couple of wing beats to go down and catch their prey that hasn't even known that they're there. And it will either constrict with its talons to kill them, or it will snap its backbone. Sometimes they eat in midday, especially if they're feeding some young. This one was directly above the sun, directly overhead, eating some kind of bird, and we think it was a willet that it caught on the beach. But he was up there enjoying himself. And the bird, once the babies fledge or fly out of the nest, parents will bring them food. This pair had a snake. I was told they were playing tug of war with it for a while. We had Dan, and I can't think of his last name, supplied a lot of the pictures that we have here at the Nature Center. And this was one of his. Very patient person waiting for his photographs. How owls take nests. They don't build them. Sometimes they'll take a hawk or a crow nest. This one started to break down as the owlet grew and grew some more. This picture was taken just before the nest collapsed and the owl fell, and I had gone out to start a walk, and the rangers were coming in with a crate and everything. So by the time my group got down to the owl sign, they were delighted with this show of capturing the eaglet that had fallen out of the nest. It was taken to the Bush Rehab Center to be checked for broken bones and returned the next day. And one of the men from there was a tree climber. So he put this crate a little bit lower down in the same tree, lashed it in, took up some pine needles and grasses for a soft bottom, hauled up the owlet, placed it in the crate, and the parents said, "Thank you," and continued to feed it for another couple of weeks until it was ready to fledge. They haven't come back to it. I guess there's no soft stuff in the bottom of it. They have rejected it for subsequent years. they will continue to teach their young how to hunt. They'll give them some food, but they'll also teach them how to hunt for food for the next few months. And owlets have to learn to fly. I never really thought about birds learning to fly, it's part of their nature. This one that you see 2 shots of is the younger of 2 owls. The other one had flown out to the left, and this one followed. And it was sitting on this branch upright. The other one flew off to the right. And he's sitting there, well, what do I do next? And in steps, not in fluid motion, in steps, he lay down on the branch, put his wings out, and started to flap. And I caught him just as he's taken off. But it was a really thoughtful process of getting from that sitting up on a branch to getting out and flying. Owls take nests. This is the one that they used for many years. The one on the left is that osprey nest that you see from the sign in 2019. Look how nice and full and big it is. Today, after a number of storms have wreaked havoc on it, there's the nest, that same nest on the right. They nested again this year in February in this nest on the right, in December on the nest on the right. We're in it for several weeks, and then they abandoned the nest. They tried again in February, same nest, they didn't learn. And again, abandoned after a couple of weeks. So no owlets this year. But you look at the nest, you wonder if there's even a bottom in it. There must have been enough to hold the eggs for a little while.
They won't do any work to improve it?
No, they won't do any work to improve it, and at this point, the ospreys won't either. They won't come back because it's too far gone. There was another couple of nests down the trail that were just looking bedraggled like that, and the ospreys came back and looked at it, brought a couple sticks in, and I don't know whether the ospreys have taken sticks out or whether wind has taken sticks out, but some of them are just plain gone. Maybe next year they'll try and use that tree again. It was last year or the year before they nested in the vines in the crook of a branch by the parking lot, down by the picnic area. And you can see the camouflage. It's hard to see the owl there. When the owlets fledged, Mom took them down the trail. And the owls, when they've been sitting in the nest, especially in that big nest out in the open, they watch people going down the trail all the time. People and their dogs, lots of interesting stuff going on. So when these owls have fledged, they've mostly been alongside the trail, especially early on before they do a lot of hunting. Still watching the people watching them, which is just delightful. And this was a cold, windy day just after they had fledged, and they're sitting there watching people watching them. And you can see the right eye of the one that's upper has the nictitating membrane over it. Great horned owls are the hooty owls. We also have a lot of the barred owls, just slightly smaller around here, but I hear them out behind our home in Newport Richey. So here's the hooty owl. And that's the barred owl. Who cooks for you? He's the noisy one. This was the nest that they chose several years ago on the west side of the Osprey Trail, and it blew down before, just as the owlet was ready to fledge, but wasn't quite ready. He made it to the next tree and was able to climb up the tree. And my camera unfortunately focused on the pine needles. But this guy got up there to the top, and what does he do? he wraps his wings around the branch and takes a nap. He stayed there longer than I did. Bald eagles. Talons are 3 toes forward and 1 back. Back one is a little bit longer. Kill prey by piercing it with their talons. And here's a little bit closer view of those talons. They will steal fish from osprey and other eagles. We were out kayaking one day, and osprey flew by with a fish, and the eagle came along after it, flipped upside down, and went to take the fish away from the osprey. The osprey pulled up, and we had quite an aerobatic show before the fish was dropped. And they both went their separate ways. Neither of them went back to pick it up again. Here, one adult on the left has caught a fish and is taking it back to the nest. Eaglets grow fast. These 2 were almost ready to fledge at 8 weeks. And this was the old nest, another 100 yards farther down the trail than, farther north on the trail than the nest is now. It was really damaged in a storm, and the rangers finished taking it down. So they nested in a better place for viewing.
When did they do the nest that's there? What year?
This nest, this picture was taken in February of 2016. This picture was taken in November of 2016. So they started it, and I've got a progression here of from then to now. And if you take a look at this Y up here, and keep your eyes on the Y and the distance of the nest from that Y, you'll see it from then to now. Go forward. Oh. That was the second one. Here's the third one, getting a little closer to that Y. Still getting a little bit closer yet. And there it is today. So it's a huge nest. It is big enough to hold both adults and both eaglets without being able to see them. Eaglets take 4.5 to 5 years before they become adults. The one on the left is, both of these are first year and transitioning to second year. They still have a dark beak and random white on their feathers. The one on the left here is probably 3rd year, and next year it'll get the white, kind of a murky white head and tail. And then after 4.5, 5 years, you'll see the adult. For vultures, we have the turkey vulture on the left. It has white from wingtip to wingtip. The black vulture is darker, and it has the white tips on the ends. The turkey vulture is the one you see up there, and it looks as though he's had one too many. He's just kind of evening out so that he stays in the thermal. The black vultures will go flat, 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 glide, flat, 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 glide. They fly a little bit differently. And you have the black vulture on the left and the turkey on the right. Both of them have featherless heads, because when they're sticking their heads into carrion, you don't want to get all that goop over your head. The black vulture's legs, you can notice, are a little bit white. He will pee on his legs, both to take care of bugs and to cool off on a hot day. Black vultures are the dominant vulture. Turkey vultures came around this carcass first, and the black vultures chased them off. I think it's a river otter. It was around the pond behind our house, and I went out afterwards to see what was left over after the vultures had finished off this animal. Nothing. There was no fur, there were no bones, there was nothing, which was truly amazing. They are nature's cleanup crew. very valuable. I mean, we think, these ugly things, and I don't like them standing on my roof and pounding around like elephants on the roof. But they are nature's scavengers. Their stomach acid and the eagle's stomach acid are strong enough to take care of pathogens like rabies and plague and other things that breed in dead meat. One thing I forgot to mention is owls have no sense of smell. Great horned owls can take skunks. And that's it. So, are there any questions? You've asked a few. I like that one. He was so awkward.
Yeah, that was good.
And that is his front that we're looking at,
Yeah.
with his head twisted around to the back.
What kind of camera and lens do you use?
I have a Canon SX70, which has a 65x zoom. So I can look at that little dot out there and
Yeah.
zoom in on it and get a picture that's at least enough to identify the bird.
Pictures are great.
And I have fun with it. I always have my camera with me, and I've got my binoculars with me, and I'm prepared. But I don't have the patience that
Yes.
some of the other
Yes.
people have.
Yeah.
A couple of websites that I would recommend is Florida Birds on Facebook. Look up Florida Birds. There are some wonderful photographers on that. I'd also recommend that you go to YouTube. I didn't have a picture, and I hope to get one of an osprey diving into the water to catch its fish. But look up diving osprey or hunting osprey. Sometimes you have to put the word bird when you're searching, because you have ospreys that are planes and tanks and ships, and same with eagle, but the word bird will filter it down a little bit more. And also look up eagle swimming when you go on YouTube. I get lost on YouTube sometimes watching some of these wonderful videos, and then I hear this voice from the other room, "Are we gonna eat tonight?" But there's some wonderful antics out there. There's one of owls, how do owls fly so silently? There's a wonderful one that's been done, and that shows how it's been done.
And when
So-
ospreys stop to eat the head off the fish,
Mhm.
we've been in places where it seems there's a regular hole that the osprey comes to. Do they pick a favorite place to stop, or is it
Do you have a
random?
favorite place to sit and read a book, or sit and watch your television or computer? They have their favorite spots too. So yes, they come back to places that they know are good spots. So thank you all for coming today. Yes, Priscilla?
So you say the eagles swim, now they dive and then swim underwater?
No. The ospreys will go into the water
Right.
up to 3 feet.
Right.
Eagles catch their prey, catch their fish when they're close to the surface, and fish often come up close to the surface. And if it's a big fish and they can't pick it up, carry it out of the water, they have this wonderful overhand, I guess this is the butterfly, that, I've seen them do a couple of times, take the fish over to shore, and then with their talons or their beak, they'll kind of pick it up and move it over to the beach and eat their fill, and then come back to it later or whatever. Anyway, there are a few refreshments out there that Tim's put out.
Oh, that's the good stuff.
And I thank you all for coming today.
So Lynn, I do have a quick question for you.
Yes.
I've been out with Tim before on a walk,
Yeah.
and he's pointing out that the owl is